So what did we discover when we started looking at this area, looking at the problem? So these numbers that you can see in front of you are really for Northern Ireland, because this was a Northern Ireland focused project. But you can put this into perspective if you remember that, for example, England has a population of around 30 times Northern Ireland. So I don't have the numbers for England, but you wouldn't be too far off if you take the numbers on the screen and you do the maths in your head and you multiply by 30. So in Northern Ireland, there are over 2,000 people every year whose death is attributed to respiratory disease. Now, in some small areas and some wards in Northern Ireland, that accounts for almost 30% of deaths that are linked to respiratory disease. There's around 10,000 people admitted to critical care every year with respiratory problems. And in fact, research shows that 50% of them were admitted in the previous 6 months. So people are coming back to hospital again and again and again. And 1 in every 10 pounds spent on prescription medicine is going on a respiratory medicine like Sabirma. So we also learned about the link between pollution and health. And that link is not in dispute. The research literature that you can find has clearly established that connection. And what is happening right now in the cutting edge is the detail of how these things are connected, and the true detail of the kinds of conditions that can be impacted by pollution. Now, this particular study that you can see in front of you is a few stats, a few pieces of information from a King's College London paper that was released in 2019. And it really personalizes the pollution impact. Now, they're saying that in Manchester, if you cut air pollution by 20%, you would have 20 fewer lung cancer cases every year, 284 fewer children with low lung function born every year. On higher days of pollution in Manchester, every day of high pollution, you get 6 more cardiac arrests. Every day with high pollution in Manchester, you get 6 more adults and 8 more children being taken to hospital. So we also looked at the wider context to try and understand why our SBRI sponsors were interested in this particular challenge. And it really comes from this idea that was championed by a report on the Northern Ireland Health Service coming from 2016, known as the Ben-Gullah report. And the key thing, it's a very long report, it's 100 pages long, so I crammed a lot into one slide here. But the key thing to notice is that we cost the NHS the most as we get older. Very rapidly as we age into our later years, our cost to the NHS rises significantly. So it's the healthy life that we can lead that impacts the NHS the greatest. And the Ben-Gullah report recognizes this and recognizes that in fact, deprivation has a huge impact on health conditions and the cost to the NHS, with 14 years fewer of healthy life expectancy in deprived areas when compared to the most affluent. And the report suggests 3 key changes that the NHS should look to make over the next few years. The first is to move away from a model based on acute care to a model that is based on the needs of chronic patients, long-term patient care. To move away from a reactive model based on curing illness, of course that still has to happen, but to refocus on a proactive model designed to care for long-term health conditions. And to move away from providing care to actively helping patients manage their own self-care. So that's really the context behind what has driven this particular SBRI and other initiatives like it around the UK. So what kind of pollution affects people in Northern Ireland and across the UK? So the most well-known, perhaps, is the NO2 that you get from road traffic. That's very, very common, and we understood, especially the backlash recently about diesel cars, for example, and the London mayor's introduction of charges to try and reduce that. But there's a secondary source of pollution, particulate pollution, and that is mostly coming from home heating. There's also ammonia emissions from agriculture. But what happens with ammonia emissions is they interact with the air, there's chemical reactions, and they generate particulate pollution. So there's a kind of a cycle there. So we're really talking about NO2, and we're talking about particulate pollution. NO2 is primarily a lung irritant, and that is not in any way to downplay its impact on people, and it has huge impact on the lived experience of people dealing with breathing conditions. But particulate pollution is strongly linked with causing respiratory conditions, with causing lung cancer, with triggering strokes, triggering cardiovascular disease, and most recently is actually linked to causing dementia.